The German gunners peeked over the tops of their Maxim guns to avoid hitting their own men. With the appearance of each face framed in its coal scuttle helmet, York's Enfield spoke. One shot equaled one dead gunner. York was from the Tennessee mountains, where firearms were used to put food on the table. Mountain folk were frugal, making each shot count. Unnoticed by York, several Germans moved forward, locating York's position. Out of sight, they counted the shots from York's rifle, establishing the pattern of his shooting. They counted a series of 5 shots from his Enfield and rushed York to gain the advantage of the few extra seconds it took to reload the rifle. As the Germans charged, they came into easy pistol range. John Browning, the creator of the M1911, employed the short recoil principle in the gun's primary design. This technology was widely emulated and has since become the principal form for 20th century firearms and nearly all modern centerfire pistols. The pistol has gained popularity among civilian shooters involved in competitive events such as the International Defensive Pistol Association and International Practical Shooting Confederation. Throughout its service life, the U.S. military acquired approximately 2.7 million M1911 and M1911A1 pistols. The gun served as the standard sidearm for United States Armed Forces from 1911 to 1985 and was extensively deployed in World War I, World War II, the Korean War, and the Vietnam War. However, the M1911A1 was eventually replaced by the 9mm Beretta M9 in 1985, despite the U.S. Army's decision to continue using the M1911A1 until October 1986. The M1911's immense popularity among users resulted in it being kept in use, and even today, modernized versions of it are employed by selected units in the U.S. Army Special Forces, U.S. Marine Corps, and the U.S. Navy. The M1911 pistol originated in the late 1890s as the result of a search for a suitable self-loading, or semi-automatic, pistol to replace the variety of revolvers in service at the time. Hiram S. Maxim had designed a self-loading rifle in the 1880s, but was preoccupied with machine guns. In the U.S., such a program would lead to a formal test at the turn of the 20th century. Following success in trials, the Colt pistol was formally adopted by the Army on March 29, 1911. The M1911 was a favored small arm of both U.S. and Allied military personnel during World War II. It was prized by some British commando units and Britain's highly covert Special Operations Executive, as well as South African Commonwealth forces. During the war, about 1.9 million units were produced by the U.S. government for all forces. Throughout its production life, Browning's M1911 design has remained largely unchanged, adhering to the basic principle of recoil operation. During firing, expanding gases force the bullet down the barrel while simultaneously imparting reverse momentum to the slide and barrel, which are locked together at that time. Once the bullet exits the barrel, the slide and barrel continue moving rearward a short distance before the link pivots the rear of the barrel downward, out of the slide's locking recesses. This action causes the barrel to stop against the frame thanks to contact with the lower barrel lugs. As the slide continues moving rearward, a claw extractor pulls the spent casing from the firing chamber, and an ejector strikes the rear of the case, pivoting it out of the ejection port and away from the pistol. The slide will have halted at this point before being propelled forward again by the recoil spring to grab a fresh cartridge from the magazine and feed it into the chamber. Upon reaching the end of its forward travel, the slide locks into the barrel, ready to fire once again. However, firing of the last round in the magazine results in the slide locking in the rearward position, signaling the shooter to reload by ejecting the empty magazine and inserting a loaded one. To reload the chamber, one must either pull the slide back slightly and release it, or push down on the slide stop to release it under spring pressure, initiating the cycle again. Apart from grip screws, there are no fasteners in the 1911 design, with the main components held in place by mainsprings force. Partially retracting the slide, removing the slide stop, and then disassembling the barrel bushing facilitate field stripping the pistol, whereas complete disassembly to its individual components requires tools. The military mandate the use of a grip safety and manual safety in M1911s. Consequently, all standard M1911A1s feature grip safety, sear disconnect, slide stop, half cock position, and manual safety, located on the left rear of the firearm. Firing pin block safety is also available, with Colt's 80s series making use of it. The U.S. Army Marksmanship Unit initiated the M1911A2 project in response to increased demand for M1911 pistols among Army Special Operations units who already use a variety of M1911 pistols. The objective was to develop at least 7 variants of the pistol with features like different sights, internal and external extractors, a mix of finishes, and flat or arched mainspring housings. These options would give the end user the opportunity to select the features that best fit their missions. In 2004, some prototypes of the new pistols were demonstrated to the Marine Corps and various Special Operations units. The demonstrations were well received and provided the AMU with valuable feedback. Although an RFP for a joint combat pistol was canceled, units continued to experiment with the M1911 pistol in 40 S&W, integrating lessons learned from the A2 project. Currently, the Springfield Custom Shop produces the Springfield Custom Professional Model 1911A1 pistol under contract for FBI regional SWAT teams and the Hostage Rescue Team. New and improved variants may become available in the future based on the testbed provided by the M1911A2 project. On March 18, 2011, the U.S. state of Utah, as a way of honoring M1911 designer John Browning, who was born and raised in the state, adopted the Browning M1911 as the official firearm of Utah. As far as the gameplay goes, the 1911 was fun to mess around with, but I can't help but compare it to the Glock. You really start to feel the age when you realize that the original design had 7 and 8 round box magazines, and in Ghosts it's an 8 round magazine. The Glock easily doubles this. As far as the sights go, I do like how brightly they're colored and they show up well in the dark silo. And they're good for precision as they're quite small. However, because they're so small, it can be difficult to get on target quickly. I find the big blocky sights of the Glock are better for combat shooting. Additionally, in my short time with the gun, I experienced 2 reloading woes. The first being if I held down the reload button for too long, it would force the slide forward, causing me to have an empty chamber when reloading from empty. Additionally, and maybe I needed to hold the gun more vertically, but the magazines come out slowly, and in the middle of a firefight, this caused me to fail on a reload. Now I'd like to include some short stories about the legendary .45 caliber 1911. Second Lieutenant Frank Luke, Jr. On 29 September 1918, Second Lieutenant Frank Luke, Jr. of the United States Army's 27th Aero Squadron flew over an American balloon squadron, dropping a note, "Watch for burning German balloons," just beyond the German lines. As predicted, observers saw the 3 explosions of 3 balloons. Luke did not return. It was not until after the war that a Graves registration unit learned the conclusion of Luke's 3-kill attack. After destroying the 3rd balloon, Luke was wounded and his SPAD was shot up that he could barely control it. Nevertheless, he maneuvered his airplane to strafe German infantry columns. He crash-landed and was immediately surrounded by Germans. Rather than surrender, he drew his .45 automatic pistol and started firing at the Germans. They returned his fire, killing Luke immediately. Frank Luke was awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor posthumously. Sheffield Banta. There was a moment of heart-stopping drama at the division's CP command post when a sword-wielding Japanese officer stepped into the open with 2 riflemen and headed directly for Archer Vandergrift, who was in the open, alone and unarmed. Major General Sheffield Banta, an utterly unflappable old salt, stopped typing a report long enough to unholster his .45 caliber automatic pistol and plug the officer dead in his tracks. Bruce N. Canfield in his book, U.S. Infantry Weapons of World War II. Texas Ranger Charlie Miller. A citizen noted the hammer back on the 1911 carried in the waistband by Charlie Miller, Texas Ranger. The citizen asks, "Isn't that dangerous?" Charlie replied, "I wouldn't carry the son of a bitch if it wasn't dangerous." Sergeant Alvin York. On the morning of 8 October 1918, elements of the 328th Infantry, 82nd Division, United States Army, were pinned down by German machine gun fire. 17 men, under the command of Sergeant Bernard Early, were ordered to outflank the machine guns. Shortly after they left their own lines, they came across a German officer and several soldiers having breakfast. Believing that they were surrounded, the Germans surrendered. However, before Early could detach a man to take the prisoners back through the lines, intensive machine gun fire swept the patrol. 8 American soldiers survived. Sergeant Early was killed. As the remaining non-com, Corporal Alvin York took command of the patrol. While the remaining Americans covered their prisoners, trying at the same time to avoid enemy fire, York spotted the location of the German guns about 30 yards away. In addition to his Enfield M1917 rifle, he also carried a Colt 45 automatic pistol. The German gunners peeked over the tops of their Maxim guns to avoid hitting their own men. With the appearance of each face framed in its coal scuttle helmet, York's Enfield spoke. 1 shot equaled 1 dead gunner. York was from the Tennessee mountains, where firearms were used to put food on the table. Mountain folk were frugal, making each shot count. Unnoticed by York, several Germans moved forward, locating York's position. Out of sight, they counted the shots from York's rifle, establishing the pattern of his shooting. They counted a series of 5 shots from his Enfield and rushed York to gain the advantage of the few extra seconds it took to reload the rifle. As the Germans charged, they came into easy pistol range. York brought the .45 automatic into action, stopping the patrol in its tracks. He continued shooting and advancing, killing a total of 25 German soldiers and capturing 132 by himself. York was promoted to sergeant and awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor. We at TGF TV would like to thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, feel free to like, subscribe, and comment. And if you'd like to help support the project, check us out on Patreon. Nah, man, my fingers are sore from all the sharp edges on that piece of shit.